The Browns' playoff roll continues. Oh, how about them apples? The Browns with a big win in Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football, wild card weekend, and advancing to the divisional round for the first time since 1994. I'm Jason Gibbs, alongside Andrew Gribble and Nathan Zegura. This is the best podcast available. And gentlemen, a good Wednesday to you both. We turn the page from Pittsburgh to Kansas City, but I do want to get a few thoughts on the magic that has happened
all week.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not turning the page completely. We'll get to that.
Let the team turn the page.
Yeah.
What's that?
Let the team turn the page. We can revel.
Yeah, let's have some revelry gimmick.
We should revel. Number one, what was it like at Heinz Field on Sunday night? You were both there. What was it like? Your takeaways? Gribbs, you were up. Were you in the press box or were you in an auxiliary press box? Zagura, you were down in the moat area. Gribbs, I'll start with you.
I was in the press box. I believe I was seat 50 in the front row. So that's the furthest to the right that you can be in the press box. But I did share a pane of glass with the Steelers radio booth. So not good times in there. I mean, they were stunned just like I was. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't even know if my eyes were directly on the field when that first snap went over the head of Ben Roethlisberger. And I was just like, what is going on here? It didn't even look like the game had begun. And then it was just a weird feeling. And I'm sure Nathan can go elaborate more on this, but you know, I would say we've been maybe a little bit spoiled having fans at First Energy Stadium all year this year, but that is what made it feel so weird. And I don't know if it played into the Browns' advantage. I don't know if it was a disadvantage or really neutral for anyone, but to be in that game, this game of such magnitude for Browns fans and just the franchise as a whole, and to be in a building where only 2,500 people got to see it was strange. And I would have obviously enjoyed the same result no matter what, but to have had that same result, but it be in front of 65,000 sad Steelers fans, that would have been on another level. But it was just kind of an eerie, kind of calming feeling. And I think the Browns just took advantage of it. And it was truly stunning to watch in person because you just couldn't. NFL teams don't jump out to 28-point leads. It just doesn't happen. But this happened in the playoffs, and the Browns benefit from it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It was definitely interesting. And I was trying to think, for me, I think that is, you know, the least number of people since week one, because I feel like when we played in Cincinnati, there were some fans in that building. And so week one for me was Baltimore, obviously, and there was nobody. It was myself, a few other members of the media, and their 10-person band for the Ravens. And that I thought was so weird. It was like you're on the set of a movie watching something that was going to be put in front of an audience later on. And this kind of had a similar feel. But the people behind the Browns bench, so there were some fans behind our bench and then behind theirs, and I'm assuming their bench was their friends and family. Our bench was our friends and family. And so getting to see the players kind of interact with their families during the game was awesome. Kareem Hunt's parents were there and had a like late 90s WWE Raw homemade signs for Kareem, which I thought was the coolest thing. And so it was kind of a unique atmosphere. It was incredibly quiet. I mean, obviously where I was, I would hear the Browns fans behind me. You know, Coach Prefer's wife and his daughters were there, and you could hear them erupt with things, and you really could hear the bench, which was pretty cool. But it was kind of a surreal feeling all in all. I mean, and I just watched the game back on TV. I'd watched all 22, and then I watched it back on TV. And on TV, you didn't get the same sense of the silence that you did there. They still did a great job of creating that big game atmosphere. But we just took it to them physically. And that's really what jumps out. The way Kareem Hunt ran over Spillane and clapped him all the way into the end zone, the way that Larry Ogunjobi took Pouncey back 10 yards on that 3rd and 1. I mean, we just physically dominated this team. And the story I like to keep telling, there are two. One is, you know, on one of my sideline hits, I said, Jim, thank God you are at First Energy Stadium in a completely different location, and you are narrating the same things that I'm seeing, because otherwise I might not believe, like I may have thought I drove into some portal that was fulfilled with Browns fantasies, because it just didn't seem, you know, it was so unexpected. 28-0, most points ever in a first quarter. And that was cool. I will say the crowd part of it, Gribbs, I think definitely played into our advantage in the third quarter, because when they cut it to 12, I've been in that place, and I remember, you know, John Football's first start there, for example. that place can get rabid. I mean, rabid. And of course, they may play Renegade. They didn't, so we played it to open CBD. No big deal this week. But, that I think was different because then it kind of magnifies, right? The momentum magnifies, the pressure magnifies, all that. So you didn't have that. And then when we hit the screen to Nick Chubb, it would have been great to go from that rabid, we're back in this game, to just the silence, the defeat, like Cartman with Scott Tenorman. The tears of infinite sadness would have tasted so delicious, but we didn't really get a chance to experience that. So we'll just revel in the fact that we won, which is great, and their season is over.
And I think the most stunning thing is I think this gets thrown around too much with NFL teams because we see how hard all these teams prepare week in and week out. And I actually talked to, as an aside, I talked to Blake Hance recently, and he talked about being with the Jets all season. He's like, even though we lost like almost every game, everyone showed up, everyone was working hard. That's what happens in the NFL. So I don't put this out there lightly, but it really was like this. It was the Browns who practiced all week and the Steelers who didn't. And it was like the first time in my time watching the NFL, I've seen a team maybe overlook an opponent, especially in the playoffs. And I think that's what was so stunning about that first quarter is the Steelers didn't come to play, and they happened to catch the Browns with I would say this is the third time this year where the Browns just came out guns a-blazing, and the Steelers picked the wrong time to overlook the Browns because it was those Browns that played against the Titans and the Cowboys earlier this year that showed up and put the Steelers in a hole that I know people were worried during the third quarter and getting a little nervous, but it's almost impossible to come back from that deficit in the NFL. It's just too hard to do.
It is. It was great. And I think it goes to the coaching, to the fact that we didn't get to practice and that these guys were this locked in and able to execute and play at that high of a level right out of the gate is amazing. And there's something to be said, I think, for being able to stay kind of in a semi-rhythm. And the Browns had to do a lot of it mentally. They did get in on Friday, but you think about it. Pouncey didn't play in week 17. Ben didn't play in week 17. Pouncey's first snap of the game leads directly to a touchdown. Ben throws 4 interceptions in the game. Cam Hayward didn't play, and we didn't hear his name in a game that you would have thought he was going to dominate. Instead, Michael Dunn and Blake Hance dominated him. TJ Watt was a non-factor. He drew a holding penalty on Kendall Lamb's first snap, which is, you come in, you're not quite loose yet, and you have to deal with that speed. So that's interesting. And then, not to look too far ahead, but these Chiefs are not going to have played, the players of significance on the Chiefs team aren't going to have played for 3 weeks, which I think it's a long time. But you're right. The Browns came out like gangbusters, and it was awesome. This is something that every Browns fan will remember for the rest of their lives. I mean, here's the thing to me that is crazy. I was actually at the grocery store, and a guy says to me, he said, kids who are 25 years old had never seen the Browns win a playoff game.
Yeah. I mean, I was 94. I was a high school senior.
I was a sophomore.
Yeah. I mean,
People who are 50 years old have never seen the Browns win a road playoff game.
50. That's right.
Just crazy. And for the Steelers, this is not the first time that, you could say their last home playoff game was that loss to Jacksonville. They didn't take them seriously. And Leonard Fournette ran all over them.
Barstool Sports has a great compilation of fan reactions to both that game and this one from Steelers fans. Staged or not, quite entertaining.
All right, Zagura, the Browns beat the Steelers on Sunday because they did blank. You may only pick one thing.
They read the winning mix and they went 1, 2, 3, 4 right down the winning mix. But I'll start with they got off to a fast start. That was it. That was always the key to me this week.
Gribble.
They forced turnovers. That was this defense, obviously 500 passing yards, has some issues stopping the pass and letting teams get in that rhythm. But when this defense is forcing turnovers, that wipes away and covers up a lot of shortcomings. And I think I thought it would take 2 turnovers to win this game. I'll take 5. You force 5 turnovers, you're winning a game. And I think all of them were significant. All of them mattered. And it's impossible to win a game when you turn the ball over 5 times.
And how about the fact that the players who were responsible for the 5 turnovers? We'll give Carl Joseph the credit because he fell on the ball in the end zone. And by the way, it was his pressure that led to the MJ Stewart interception. But in the middle of the season, he was not a starter. Carl Joseph was not a starter for the Browns. MJ Stewart was not a starter for the Browns. Porter Gustin was not a starter for the Cleveland Browns. Sheldrick Redwine was not a starter for the Cleveland Browns. Sione Takitaki is probably the only one that you would say in certain packages was a starter all year long. And those are the guys that come up with the 5 turnovers. And that just to me says everything about this team, overcoming adversity, the preparation, next man up. And they've done it all year long. And it's so cool to see. And in some ways it was reminiscent of last year. If we could go through the guys who are playing defense, you remember in that game late in the season in Pittsburgh, we're like, who are these guys? It said this year, when you say that, it's guys who have been here, obviously, but they just make plays. It doesn't matter. You need Nick Harris to come in with one big game against the Giants. When Chris Hubbard goes down, he does it. You need Michael Dunn. He does it. You need Sheldrick. He does it. Porter Gustin, 5-star diving. We talked about those tip balls all week. Kevin Stefanski spoke it into existence in the team meeting the night before. And it happens. And that's just, this team not only is having success like we haven't seen with the Browns, right? This is such a fun ride. They're so fun to root for. And they seem like such a team. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to Stefanski, his staff. And then, of course, to these players who buy in, put in the work, are doing their drops. And I'm sure when we talked to Michael Dunn, doing his pass sets in the street with, people, significant others in their lives, calling out the cadences and all. I mean, just the commitment and just, it's so Browns, though. It's the best of the Browns. And then Jarvis Landry, love, just pure love. I couldn't love that guy anymore.
Yeah, just an unbelievable night, a magical night, a night none of us will ever forget.
Seminal moment.
I mean, is this the moment where this franchise turns that corner? There have been so many times this year where we can say, well, was this the moment where the culture changed or where this team changed? This might have been the case on Sunday night where this was the moment. Getting over the hurdle, going into Pittsburgh and winning, knocking your rival out of the playoffs. I mean, is this the defining moment in terms of this franchise turning things around? Gribble, I'll start with you.
I think
no pressure.
I don't know if it's a defining moment. I think it's one of the biggest moments, but I would maybe I'm giving. The regular season to me was quite a series of defining moments. I think you shed a lot of baggage during that regular season, and I think getting to the playoffs was a moment. And I think you slayed a lot of dragons to get to this point, and this was just another one on the way. So I don't know if I'm going defining moment. I think this is just going to be the most memorable moment from this season, unless special things happen this coming weekend against the Chiefs and beyond. But to this point, it is the biggest moment of the season. But I'm not going defining because I think the culture and foundation was set regardless of what happened Sunday night.
Gibby, do you mind if I kind of do a little yarn, a little chronological journey here?
As long as you don't take 30 minutes,
I will not.
We'll be great.
All right. So I felt like the culture began to change as soon as this offseason started, and Kevin Stefanski, which, is a year and a day ago, was named the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And so you had that. Then you have the 4-H talks, and Gribbs wrote a great article about that with Andy Janovich about these 4-H talks that helped bring this team together. And you got a sense in camp, as limited as it was, that, things were going to change and everybody was saying the right things. But of course, everybody says the right things that time of year, right? First big clue, week 2. You go into Baltimore, you get boat raced. You have a short week to turn around in what is now a must-win game, and you win it. And you came out and you played well at home and did what you had to do. That was really the first clue. Then you go to Pittsburgh, and we know what happened the first time we went to Pittsburgh, and we bounce back from that. And I think that is a seminal moment for Baker Mayfield. His performance in that game against the Cincinnati Bengals after Odell Beckham goes down is the moment that everything, in my opinion, changed. Now, we did not have a great game the next week against the Raiders, but then we bounced back from that. And so you're starting to see this team win in ugly ways, and those ugly, terrible weather games. Then you have that Monday night game against the Ravens, which I think was, again, a step forward, albeit with a loss. And you follow that up with a huge must-win on the road against the Giants. You lose to the Jets. You follow that up again with a win against the Steelers. And Kevin Stefanski's team, and Gribbs was right on this stat all the way, one of 4 in the NFL that did not lose consecutive games at any point this year. No surprise, all 4 made the playoffs. 3 of them are in the final 8. Us, Kansas City, our opponent this week, and of course, the Green Bay Packers. And when we went to week 17, before we even played that game against the Steelers, I was asked on the pregame, what's the word that describes the season? I said foundation. To me, the foundation was built whether we beat the Steelers in week 17 or not. When we did, we put the seal on the foundation, not going anywhere. This week, we started to build the house. And that could have started next year, and that would have been fine. But now we have done that and saying, okay, foundation's here. Now we're building the house. And who knows? Maybe we'll get the whole first floor in after we beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday if we're able to do that. But that's what it was to me. The foundation was set. You knew we were going in the right direction, but now you're getting to grow on top of it. And I think that's what's so exciting. And really, it's Stefanski, it's the buy-in, it's Baker's development. I mean, since that interception against Cincinnati, 19 touchdowns and 1 interception. And I don't think it's being talked about enough, to be honest with you. I don't think he's getting nearly enough credit. And I felt when I watched the TV broadcast back this week of the game, it was like they were almost downplaying his role. The guy went in there and they threw that cover 1 robber at him that led to a pick 6 on a critical 3rd down. And he throws a perfect ball that leads to a touchdown to Jarvis Landry. And to me, that and then Kareem running them in the end zone is over. And I don't think he's getting enough credit, but I think we're building the house now, which is awesome.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Get the yard figured out too. We got to get the yard figured out. Got to have a good yard.
That's for you. 0-turn mower. That's 0-turn
Done.
mower.
Got it. Got a cup holder, beverage.
Ready.
Good to go. I'm ready to go. I'm going to thrive in that situation. All right. Quick look at the Chiefs. And it's early in the week as we look ahead. Divisional game comes your way Sunday, 3:05 is kickoff. Thank God, not a Sunday night game. Big fan of no Sunday night football game.
I'm the favorite on Sunday night, Gibby.
Yeah, but like I cannot. I'm tired of waiting around all day. It is rough. The wife does not like it. The wife was like, "Get out." People started showing up. You know, our radio crew started showing up 4 hours before kick. I go, "What are y'all doing here?" I didn't know what else to do. And my wife said, "Get out of the house," was the answer from the majority of people. So, I mean, it was, I don't like waiting around all day. 3:05, solid kick. And you got Nance, you got Romo, you got the whole CBS A team here in a big divisional matchup with the Chiefs. What's the Chiefs' biggest weakness? Gribble, I'll start with you.
I mean, it's going to be hard for this to manifest in the playoffs, but I would say their biggest weakness is complacency. I think that they had the most ho-hum, not even drawing much attention 14-2 season in NFL history. And if they had even tried in week 17, they probably would have been 15-1. So this is an all-time great team, but they just didn't look like the Chiefs of last year for most of this season. I just think that they made a lot of games closer than they needed to be. They turned it on when they needed to have it turned on. And so that's why I think people are just like, this Chiefs team is just kind of the Chiefs. And they don't have that kind of mystique that you might have with a 14-2 team. But that also, their biggest weakness, like I'm a George Costanza in a job interview, can turn this into their biggest strength, because that's the fear, is that they've been holding it off and the switch gets flipped in the playoffs. So, but to this point, their biggest weakness has been complacency. So you're hoping that carries over and at least leads to a little bit of an early hangover for Kansas City in this game.
Zagura?
The Chiefs, to your point, Gribbs, to me remind me of an NBA team that all they care about is the postseason, and they did what they had to do to lock up the number 1 seed and get home court advantage, or in this case, home field advantage. And that was it. It almost felt like they were content to just do enough to win every week and didn't feel the need to go full throttle at any point when they wanted to have a statement game here or there. It felt like they did, but their last 7 wins have all come by a touchdown or less, when they certainly could have done more than that, or you would think. When it comes to weaknesses on this team, there certainly aren't many. You could say maybe it's their rushing attack, but when Buffalo dared them to rush and said, we're just going to play deep safeties, they ran for 250 yards that game and beat the Buffalo Bills. So I don't know. Rush defense is 12th worst in the NFL, 12th most generous. So maybe that's what it is. Their line without Mitchell Schwartz has not performed nearly as well. Patrick Mahomes has been under more pressure the last 4 weeks. But look, this is a really good football team. And I think, like Grib said, I know we have not seen them at their best fully locked in. And so I think we will see that. And by the way, they're not at their best fully locked in is pretty darn impressive.
Listen, the Chiefs that played the Ravens earlier this year are not losing to anyone. The Chiefs that in the first half
you can beat anybody, Grips. Come on.
And I'm saying that
when you say, as a journalist in this town, when you say the Browns have no chance, it doesn't play.
I'm saying that Chiefs team came in small doses this year.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. Is that Chiefs team, that was probably their best game of the season at Baltimore. They were unbelievable in that game. Their first half against Tampa Bay, they looked unbeatable. But then the rest of the time, it was just like going through the motions.
Yes.
So that the advantage you have as the Browns is you're coming in hot. You're feeling really good about yourself. And you're wondering, you can maybe try to put the Chiefs down early while they're still working through some things and waking up and shaking off the cobwebs that, hey, this is the playoffs. It's time to flip the switch. Because you see that, to make another NBA comparison, you see that a lot. You see some teams lose game one before going on to the gentleman's sweep. This is one game in the playoffs, so you can take advantage of that and maybe catch a team sleeping here.
All right. If the Browns are to win Sunday, which they have as good a chance as anything, as anything
We're
right
hot,
now.
baby.
Yeah. But playing quite well. If they're to win Sunday, I'm asking you to rank your top 3 players from number 3 to number 1 who have to have the biggest impact. Zagura, last week, I had Gribble start everything. I'm going to have you start on this one. Your number 3 player, counting down to number 1 in terms of guys that have to have the biggest impact. You know what? I'll open it up. Can be coach if you'd like. You want to throw coach in there as a wild card? I'm going to throw it out there for you.
All right, I'll go. Okay, I'll take the bait there, and I'll try to I'll give some interesting answers. I think we're both gonna have the same number 1 like we did last week, which I think is apropos. But number 3, I'm gonna go Joe Woods. Joe Woods, and I realize that there was a lot of criticism of our defense this week because of the numbers that were allowed, and people don't like that. We let them kind of walk down the field. Listen, the closest they got was 12 points before that touchdown and 2 at the end of the game, and part of it was the clock was your friend, and so. But the real adjustment that Joe Woods made was we were a team that played cover 2 1% of the time in the regular season. 1%, second fewest in the NFL. And Joe Woods said, you know what? We talked about that vertical passing. 51% of the Steelers' yards that came on vertical passes against the Browns, 19% against the rest of the league. We've got to take that away. We played cover 2 26% of the time in that game against the Steelers. So we made a total shift and did it on a week where we had 1 practice, which is one of the main reasons Ronnie Harrison didn't play as much because he didn't get any work in the cover 2. So you make that shift, you throw it out there, you get the turnovers, and a lot of it came because of the cover 2. Ben had to throw over the middle of the field. Guess what? He was high. Interceptions for us, all because of that adjustment. So Joe Woods is critical. He's got to come up with whatever the magic adjustment is again this week.
No
come
pressure.
up with that adjustment, and you're going to get some reinforcements with Denzel and Kevin Johnson back as well. And you wonder, do they take MJ Stewart off the field? I'm kind of inclined to say no at this point. But, that adjustment by Joe Woods, who, again, is going to be able to draw on some of the things he did with the Niners, because if Emmanuel Mosley doesn't bust that coverage, the Niners defense wins them that Super Bowl. And so I think he's going to have some good ideas from there. But I'll say Joe Woods having another, and I believe he had a standout game in that game against the Steelers, despite what Ben Roethlisberger's numbers were.
Gribble, number 3 for you.
Yeah, so since we're still awaiting news on guys getting off the reserve COVID list here, I'm going to make it a bit of a tandem. I will say it is the tandem potentially of Denzel Ward, Terrence Mitchell. And most importantly, it's whoever gets the assignment of guarding Tyreek Hill, because that is the game changer on Kansas City's offense. I think obviously number 1 with them is Patrick Mahomes as the most irreplaceable player. But I think Tyreek Hill is number 2 because he changes everything you have to do on defense. And you can play a perfect game against him for all but 2 snaps, and those 2 snaps can make the difference. So he is the biggest game changer on that offense for Kansas City. And it's going to be on the Browns corners to really just bottle them up and let those other guys beat you. I don't care if you're marching down the field with the other Chiefs receivers. Let those guys beat you. Don't let Tyreek Hill beat you, because then it happens in one play instead of a few, and that's fewer opportunities to cause a turnover.
Gribble.
Forget Money Mitch in 2017 was a member of the Kansas City
Revenge game.
That's right.
It's a revenge game for a few players.
That's
Gribble,
right.
number 2 for you.
Oh, a little snake.
I'm going to go another tandem, the Chubb-Hunt tandem of the Browns running attack, and specifically what they do on second and third downs, because the recipe to beat the Chiefs is to keep their offense off the field. The time of possession that the Browns had in the Steelers game this past week, that's not going to cut it. You need to be the team that has the ball longer, because that's less time for Patrick Mahomes to work his magic. So you need to be doing these methodical drives that are run heavy, keep the clock moving, short passes, whether it be to Chubb and Hunt in the screen game. They're going to be active and involved, and it's got to be the strategy you used against the Giants. Maybe that was on purpose or not, but that's the type of game strategy that'll work against the Chiefs, because limit the possessions, limit the opportunities, you're giving yourself a chance.
Zagura, number 2 for you.
I like that, but Gribbs, I'll just say this. If our defense wants to give us short fields and we score touchdowns in 3 plays or less, I'm still going to take it. But
give me one play. Let's go.
If it's a normal type of a game, then yes, let's go ahead and get those 8-minute drives.
Who's their center? He can snap the ball all over the place if he wants.
All over. Austin Ryder, former Brown. Our guy. He used to love to go in the Zagura Zone, Mr. Ryder. Nonetheless, here we go. That's old school right there. That's for the old school loyalists.
Yeah,
you're not a bandwagon fan if you know what that was about. All right. Number 2 for me is going to be Myles Garrett. This is a game that screams Myles Garrett game-changing play. Their tackles are not their strength. We don't know about Mitchell Schwartz, if he'll be back yet or not. If he is, obviously he's a huge strength. But Myles Garrett, Eric Fisher, that's a matchup that you got to feel like he's going to get the better of. And really, the only way to stop Mahomes is pressure. Mahomes has 30 touchdowns, or maybe it's 36. I don't know. Ridiculous numbers, 35 with no pressure. 3 interceptions and a quarterback rating of 122. But when you pressure him, he's kind of like human. His rating's in the 70s. It's 8 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. So I think it's 30-3 without pressure, because he has 38 on the season. So this is a game for Myles Garrett to do something spectacular, because I think we are going to need a game-changing play on defense. And look, he wasn't a part of 5 of them this week necessarily, although anytime he's on the field, he's a part of it, because if he's triple teamed, that's what allows Carl Joseph to get pressure and all of those things. So not to minimize his role, but this is one where it feels to me like this is the Myles Garrett, comes around the corner, strips Mahomes, we pick it up, we race to the house, we're posing in front of cameras, and everybody's going nuts.
Zagura, number 1 for you. Players that have to have the biggest impact Sunday for a win.
Baker Mayfield, and I have full confidence that he's going to play a great game. That's just what he is. That's what he does now. That is the expectation. He's talking about the standard. Well, let me tell you something. Baker Mayfield, you, sir, are the standard. You have set the bar, and you are meeting it week after week after week after week. And if you're a Browns fan, that's the biggest thing. What Stefanski has done culture-wise, organizationally, with he and Andrew Berry and Depot, that's massive, right? But the other thing you wanted to find out this year, and whether it was a playoff run or not, is Baker an elite quarterback? And the answer is unequivocally yes, he is an elite quarterback. 19 touchdowns and 1 interception since that opening pick in Cincinnati. This guy's playing elite football. You're going to need it. You're going to have to score points. You would love to be able to get somehow into a game like they had with the Falcons where it's 17-14, something like that. I feel like that's unlikely, as much as I would like it to be the case. So he's going to have to make big plays. And what I love about Baker is he has been at his best recently on third downs, and he's added a wrinkle, which is in critical moments, he is picking up first downs with his legs. And that is something that really, I think that's part of a trend in the NFL. You've got to be able to do that once, twice a game, extended drive. He did it on that third down right before the half that got us to 35. That was massive in that game against the Steelers. So Baker's the guy, and I have all the confidence in the world that he is going to ball out again.
Gribble.
Yeah, I'm going with the same one. I don't care if we're repeating ourselves, but this is a game you need points. And, I'm not saying you need 48, but you just might. I mean, because if you scored 40, if you replace the Chiefs with the Steelers in that game this past week, they might be the ones that can complete that kind of comeback. That's what they have in their arsenal. They did it, a couple years ago against the Texans. I mean, and it looks so easy to them. So that kind of run is in them at any point in the game, no matter what kind of lead you build. So that means you'd have to keep scoring. And the quarterback is the one that helps you keep scoring points. So it's on his shoulders, and he's played fantastic football. I saw the stat that's gone around that Baker's had a better PFF rating than Mahomes since week 7 of the season, by a very small number. They're both playing at a very good level. But, this may need to be a reincarnation of the Red River rivalry shootout that these guys, or whatever it's called, when Oklahoma plays Texas Tech. I'm probably wrong with that. But, this has to be, it could be that again. I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring game. Like I said, Nathan, I wish I'm dreaming of that Falcons Chiefs score for this one. But odds are you're going to need to keep up with one of the best offenses in NFL history. And that's just the challenge. And I think the Browns are up for the challenge because they've certainly shown capable. They scored over 40 points 4 times this season. They can do it again.
By the way, we can do it as well, which I love. But I'll take you back. Let's go back to Sunday Night Football. The Steelers score. It's 35-23 at this point, right? Then they get the ball. They punt it to us at 35-23. Touchback.
Which they shouldn't have done. Neither here nor there.
Wonderful decision.
They had 5 minutes to think about punting too.
Wonderful decision. We get the ball at our 20. We go 80 yards for the touchdown. It's obviously capped off by the unbelievable screen from Baker to Nick Chubb. But here's looking inside. This says everything you need to know about how this organization feels about its quarterback, Baker Mayfield. 5 of the 6 plays on that drive were passes. 5 of the 6. When we needed it, they said, Bake, go do it. And he said, I will.
Yeah.
The Browns, it's weird. You have experience with these massive leads in multiple occasions, and it turns out the winning formula was to keep passing. Because even in that game against the Cowboys, you ran for 300 plus yards. You ran into some trouble when you started running into some 8-man defensive lines there. So you just got to keep the foot on the gas, especially against this team. And I think that's what they realized in this game against the Steelers. You just got to keep scoring.
Yep.
Right. Good news. We have that ability. Indeed.
Right. Keep scoring, keep making first downs. You keep the ball.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting to see how the week unfolds. And as we knock on wood, let's hope that everything is nice and quiet and status quo. And it's just a playoff week and we're enjoying things.
Last week's BPA was quite a rewatch in the midst of what followed afterward. It was like a moment in history.
It was like a time capsule. It was like we weren't hip to what was happening on Wednesday morning when we recorded the BPA.
Yeah, it was in a 3-hour span. The BPA was
very dated in a hurry.
Yes.
It was like one of those episodes, Gibbe, when they taped Saturday Night Live on Wednesday, but a lot of crazy world events unfolded between the taping and the actual airing of Saturday Night Live.
I don't know what you're talking about. Not at all. Not at all. All right, guys, real quick. Now that you're taking your little victory lap, biggest takeaway from Super Wildcard Weekend. Number one, I'm starting. I love the extra team. I like 6 games. Let's keep going, enjoying it. That was awesome this past weekend. Zagura, I'll start with you.
Football Nirvana. It became the best weekend of the NFL season. My biggest takeaway was that loved it and loved watching it. And the other is I'd like to see more NFL games on Nickelodeon. I thought that was awesome for the brief periods that I caught it, because I was at that time driving to Pittsburgh. And so I threw it on my in the passenger seat on my YouTube TV, and the game was wretched. And I kept seeing all these tweets about what was going on Nickelodeon. So I threw it on, transferred to Nickelodeon to watch the game. And I'm like, this is great. And you could tell it'd be so great for kids. And as the NFL, you want to continue to engage younger viewers. And I thought it was great. And when, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is clearly the best agitator in the National Football League, even to his own team, just ask Michael Thomas, when that all went down, they're like, they should have talked this out. It was just, I thought it was really well done, and it was a lot of fun. And Ian Eagle's son, I know, and somebody said this on Twitter, I think it was Mike Clay, said, I realize this is how genetics work, but it is incredible that he sounds exactly like Ian Eagle. Like, I was like, wait a second, is this Ian Eagle calling the game? And then they said to his son, I was like,
he's the voice of the Clippers, if I believe.
Blew my mind.
I believe Ian Eagle's son is the voice of the Clippers. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Ribs, take away from you from Super Wildcard Weekend.
this is the homer pick here, but I think the Browns had the most impressive win of the weekend. There's usually always kind of a statement kind of victory in the first week of the playoffs, the one that kind of gets your attention and you're like, wow, that team really showed up. It was the Browns, because I think you looked at some of the heavy hitters. Buffalo didn't look as good as they'd been in the previous weeks. New Orleans kind of slogged through their game against Chicago. Tampa made Taylor Heineke look like a legitimate NFL quarterback. I mean, a lot of just kind of teams going through the motions or just doing just enough to win. The Browns are the ones that made the statement this weekend. So it's always tough to keep that same level for the next week, but that's on the Browns too. But the Browns in the final game of the weekend, they were they delivered by far the most impressive win of any team out there.
All right, so that leads us to divisional weekend. Obviously, the Browns and the Chiefs, Sunday at 3:05. But on Saturday, 4:35, Rams at Packers. I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Rams. Saturday night, 8:15, Ravens, Bills. A quick thought from each of you on the Saturday games. Gribble, I'll start with you.
My personal take on Rams Packers is that to me, we've yet to have a true blowout in the playoffs so far. That to me is shaping up as the one that could go awry quickly. I think the Rams survived and did what they needed to do to beat the Seahawks. But I think with Aaron Donald banged up, questions at quarterback, it's really cold in Green Bay. I just that's the one. If I have to pick a game that's going to get out of hand in a hurry, that's my pick.
That Rams D is so good, though. It does hinge, I think you're right, though, on Aaron Donald, because they've stymied everybody. And if I was going to add one little quick takeaway from last week, it's just what's up with Russ and the Seahawks offense. I mean, it is insane how they fell off of a cliff. And it reminds you just how long an NFL season is, and you can't crown anybody after 4 weeks. But I think that game, yes, obviously significantly favors the Packers. I think that Saturday night game is a main event type of a game. The way that the Ravens are playing right now, the way the Bills are playing right now, those are two great teams. And I think the AFC playoffs are so incredibly compelling right now. I think you look at the NFC, you can write, Green Bay in. And I know that people outside of Browns world, and by the way, same people who said we couldn't beat the Steelers are probably penciling in the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. But I think if we've shown we can beat anybody. And in the AFC, I think these 4 games are just awesome. But I think that Buffalo-Baltimore game, much in many ways, like our blowout was the statement, but I thought the best wild card game was Titans-Ravens. I mean, it was the most compelling, physical, intense game that had that vibe to it. So I'm excited to see Bills-Ravens. That should be a dandy.
Sunday night, after we conclude, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. 2 old guys playing quarterback. They're all right. Brady, Breeze, promises to be a special night in New Orleans. Zagura, I'll start with you.
The Saints don't impress me. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just totally off base on it and they're going to put together a good performance. But for example, I cannot under any circumstances see the Saints go to Green Bay in that cold and win a game. Their defense is excellent without it being like a fluky, a turnover here, there, whatever. Breeze is not the same player that he used to be, not even close. And so they don't impress me very much. They should have blown out a Bears team that literally dropped their only chance at a touchdown in that game before Jimmy Graham made that unbelievable catch that made the game appear closer than it was. I think the Bucs are going to beat them. I like getting Antonio Brown. A guy can still play. He can still play. That was a huge addition. And in honor of the Bucs, and also due to its incredibly close proximity to our parking lot at Heinz Field, I did imbibe some Taco Bell in honor of the Bucs, and it was a treat. I was living moss.
Gribble, what do you think for Sunday night? What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, I mean, the Saints, I am correct. They beat them twice during the regular season, correct? I never like having a team having to win a third time. I just that makes me uneasy about that game. And I also agree with Nathan in that I think the Packers have a nice smooth runway to the Super Bowl right now. But if I'm picking a team that gives them a better game next round, it's probably going to be Tampa, because I just think the Saints. Yeah, the Saints are just, they've got really good defense, and I think they're built in a way to give Tom Brady issues. So I still would not feel comfortable picking Tampa to win this game, but I do think Tampa provides the more compelling matchup the following week.
Yeah, Tom can play in cold weather. Like that's what he's done his entire career. So going to Green Bay, I think, is much different for him than it is for Breeze. Breeze hasn't been good outdoors for a couple of years. I mean, anybody who plays fantasy football knows that when you see him on the road outdoors in any kind of cold or wind, you're like, yeah, maybe I'll pick somebody up off the waiver wire.
Saints defense, though, does not get enough credit, though. That's a legit defense.
Agreed.
It's one of the best defenses in the league, and I think that's why I think they have a very good chance to advance. But I don't like either team's chances very much after this round.
All right, that's a look around the league as we get ready for the divisional matchups. Guys, time to sit back. Not really time to sit back. We're going to be working like crazy for you for the next 5 days leading up to kickoff at 3:05 on Sunday. Gribbs, what can we expect on clevelandbrowns.com this week?
Oh, we've got a big feature on our guys Michael Dunn and Blake Hance, who really defied all odds to not only be on the field, but to play at an elite level in that game on Sunday. And then we've just got the normal comprehensive coverage that you can always come to expect. So it's a big week. I much enjoy writing about actual football at this time of year than Senior Bowl prospects.
Yeah, correct.
Bring in the best.
And I'm doing 2-minute drills every day to get you ready. So Monday was an overview of the Chiefs. Tuesday was the Chiefs offense. Today will be the Chiefs defense. Then we'll get into the matchups to watch. And of course, the winning mix, AKA the keys to victory on Friday. And we've got all kinds of Browns live stuff going on. So stay tuned for updates on all of that.
In addition, on the radio side, Cleveland Browns Daily every day. Yesterday, a pretty great day. Peter King, Sam Monson joined us.
Listen to the
Mark Sessler is going to join us on Wednesday. A number of what's that?
IE today.
IE today. Exactly. For those of you that are paying attention. But looking forward to that. We also have the Browns preview show Wednesday night, the Kevin Stefanski show Thursday night, another special playoff preview special on Friday night on the radio network at 7:00. And, of course, the pregame shows comes your way at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, taking you all the way up to kickoff at 3:05 with Jim Doug and the Z that stands for Zagura. You can like and subscribe today to this podcast, the best podcast available, wherever you get your podcast. Download it today. For Andrew Gribble, for Nathan Zegura, for Jeff McDaniel behind the scenes, who is awake finally after a marathon weekend in Pittsburgh, I'm Jason Gibbs. We're hoping to be back next week to preview the AFC Championship. Knock on wood. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the best podcast available.